dear ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the launch conference of the ENE, the second part, the ETF Network for Vocational Excellence. This meeting is a follow-up of the launch event, which took place at the end of last year, and there's a warm welcome to all of you following on Zoom, and a warm welcome to our distinguished speakers. Today is going to be a great day, and before we start, just let me give you some useful information so that you can enjoy the conversation. For those of you who are participants in this conversation on Zoom, we have an interpretation service. So if you can hear me, it's because you are correctly part of the interpretation channels, both in English, French, and Russian. So as shown in a slide, which I kindly ask the technical team to show, please select your preferred option. To enjoy better the conversation, I warmly recommend you to use the speaker's view so that you can immediately see who is speaking. And if you want to participate in the discussion, both in the Q&A sessions, but anytime during this conversation, please send your comments and questions in the chat. And bear in mind that in case of unanswered questions, they are not lost, but they will be tackled on Open Space, the online community of the European Training Foundation and of all the learners and learning professionals all over the world. You will find a link later in the chat. For any technical issue, please write technical support needed in the chat, and our colleagues will be glad to help you out throughout this conversation. If you want to talk about this conversation on social media, don't forget to use the hashtags about the event, hashtag ENE Network and hashtag VET Excellence. And don't forget to tag us, the European Training Foundation, with the handle ETF Europa. And now a short message for the speakers. Please, if you want to communicate internally, use the chat, which is dedicated to speakers. I kindly ask you to keep your mics switched off when you are not speaking. When your slides will be projected, you will not need to show the slides. Our technical team will do this for you. Just keep in mind to ask for next slide, please, or over, or let's move forward, in case you want the next slide to be shown. And since the agenda is super tight, please remind to stick to the allocated time for your presentations. You have a clock which is shown to you on top right. And for your presentations, when your time will be over, you will hear this sound, which I will be doing. So now let's go to the substance. So today is another important milestone for our ETF Network for Excellence, because we celebrate the second part of the launch. Around this nice virtual table, we have policymakers and experts from more than 140 centers. And the conditions are still the same. So we're still on a virtual table, but we hope soon this will be an analogic one, so we'll be happy to meet in person very soon. But in order to introduce the overall context and the agenda of the day, I'd like to immediately give the floor to my colleague Manuela Prina from the European Training Foundation. Manuela, over to you, please.
Thank you, Daria, and good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to open this second part of the ENE launch event. I took over the role of head of unit on the 1st of January at the ETF, even if I've been with ETF for some years now. And I'm really, really happy to be able to be here with you today on this important occasion. I would like Usually we do thank you messages at the end of the meeting, but for me, it's important to say that I took over the work of ENE and really had a deep dive into the ENE network in these first days of the year. Thanks a lot to Yorgos, whom you, I think, all know very well, who is here with us, of course, online, but will guide the session tomorrow, and also to Manuel, who is now coordinating the work of the team, which is quite a big team. Of course, you wonder why I came first to talk, and I think that the two gentlemen left me as the first one on the occasion of the week where we celebrate also the Women's International Day, and I want to take this opportunity also to congratulate all women who are here and work for excellence. Of course, it's all of us working for excellence, but I think it's important to congratulate them on this occasion. Today is the second meeting for ENE. We are growing as a network. It's more than 140 members that have joined the network. And today we are more than 240 people joining the event for this discussion from 45 countries. Through 3 continents, Europe, Asia, and Africa. And I think this is really remarkable. We are happy to see the network growing, and the meeting today and tomorrow wants really to be a meeting where we focus on decisions, on what we'll be working on together as a network. We wanted very much this meeting to be in Torino and to be live, and of course this is not yet possible. And this is why I think excellence is even more important. It is important as an achievement, as many of you who are here today have already embraced this for a long time, and I think there is nothing to teach you about excellence, but it's also important as an aspiration, as the ability to listen to the changing needs, and also to embrace change and strive for quality. And also, I think it's very important as a message in this specific historical moment when people, and young people especially, seems to be really happy with little and having difficulties to look forward to the future. So we need to help the young generation, but all citizens, to really embrace, aspire, and work for excellence and for their future. So today we focus on areas of work that the network is already working on, and we will discuss many topics. And tomorrow we will put on the agenda new topics that are emerging from discussions with many of you as issues that need to be tackled, or where we want to strengthen cooperation. The agenda is extremely rich, and throughout the 2 days, we will maximize, and this was a request from the meeting in December, the interaction with all of you. Of course, this is challenging. We are more than 200 people online. We are working in 4 different languages, but all sessions will try to make the best use of questions, of pools, and we will also have breakout rooms where we will have the opportunity to discuss more in depth with each other. It has not been easy to organize this interaction, and I think the team has been really exceptional in trying to maximize this time together online. We want to come to the end tomorrow with decisions on what concrete areas of work we want to bring forward together. And when I say we, I'm talking about all of us as a network. So it's very important for me that you agree on a challenge. And this is what is the challenge is about. Each of us, and I'm talking to everybody, the participants, the speakers, in whatever room we are, we will need to come to the end of tomorrow having touched base with at least 20 people. Do it as you want, chat, talk in the breakout rooms, send personal messages, follow the polls, but do it. Let's make this event excellent in terms of interaction amongst us. Even if we are not live and we are not together, I think we deserve, as a community, as a network, to really maximize this time together and have meaningful results out of this meeting. And this is only possible if we really pull our ideas together, we exchange and we make decisions. I think this is what excellence is about, is delivering meaningful results that really shape the future. And I think we are here for that. So I thank you very much for being here. I look forward to really a productive discussion, and I pass back the floor to Daria.
Thank you very much, Manuela, for your introduction. I've received some messages from some participants who apparently could not hear the very beginning. This is because you have not yet selected the interpretation channel, so I hope that this is working, and I kindly ask my colleagues who are dealing with the chat to possibly repeat the instructions on how to access the interpretation for those who could not do it before accessing this event. Thank you very much. So now I officially declare open session 1. Session 1 is about our opening keynote speech, and I'd like to welcome our distinguished guest and friend, João Santos, from the Directorate General Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion from the European Commission. João Santos is the real expert dealing with the future skills and excellence, and he will enlighten us in this conversation with his introduction. 10 minutes for you, João Santos, and then some time for a Q&A. Thank you very much, João.
Thank you, Daria, and good morning to everyone. I understand we are quite a few people listening to this event today. First word of thanks for all the work that ETF is doing on vocational excellence. You've been our strategic partner, I would say, in developing the concept and extending what we are doing in Europe to your partner countries. A very special thank you to Georgios for all the work he has been doing in the last years in this respect, and also, of course, to Manuela Prina now that is taking this challenge to the heart. And I see all the enthusiasm of the colleagues of ETF. Really, thank you, not only to Georgios and Manuela, but all the team that is working on this. So I would like to start by if you can put the presentation in the meantime. I'd like to start by, telling you all the people that are participating outside of Europe, from outside Europe, that you are really pioneers in a new way of thinking about vocational excellence, on modernizing vocational excellence. Manuela mentioned quite a few times the word shaping the future and producing meaningful results. And I think this really encapsulates what we are trying to do with the vocational excellence initiative. So basically, we're trying to shape the future of not only providing society with the skill that we need in order to progress collectively in a way that serves the interests both of the company, society, and the individual. So we are, with vocational excellence, you are really pioneers in the sense that you are experimenting with new approaches, and I'd really like to congratulate you for the courage to do so. In the next few minutes, I'll try to just give you an overview of what we are doing in Europe in terms of policy, in terms of funding, and then at the end, I'll say how this links with you and what are the opportunities for cooperation between European member states and ETF partner countries in the future. So, if we can go to the next slide, please. In the new Commission has been very active in the field of skills. We've been President von der Leyen has from the beginning said that we need to equip people with the skills for the digital and the green transitions. And there's been a lot of initiatives in the last few months. I will just mention 3 of them. One of them is the skills agenda, which among the various actions it has, 12 actions in total. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through all of them, but just tell you this idea of anticipating future skill needs, of being capable of translating that into curricula and bringing all the partners together. I think this idea of understanding the education and training system by itself cannot respond to the challenges of a rapidly changing world. It is not possible. Some years ago, because the changes were rather slow, the education system had time to adapt to it. Now the change is so fast, and COVID crisis exposed it in a very clear way in what regards digital needs for digital skills. That the speed, the pace of change is so fast that the education system needs to cooperate with companies, with public employment services, regional development authorities. We have to bring all the partners together so that collectively we understand what society and business needs and how the education system can rapidly adapt to it. So there's no space for waiting for someone bright in the ministry to come up with the right ideas. We really have to be active members of the regions, of the places where we live and interact with each other. And the skills agenda sort of encapsulates this idea and puts the focus on the important need for upskilling and reskilling of the adults as well. So not only focusing on the young people, but also on the adults. Can you go to the next slide, please? The European education area, which was adopted last year in September as well, gives an idea essentially not only of what we should do in Europe in order to modernize vocational education and training in general, not only that, but also higher education, schools, and how all these sectors interact with each other. But it also has one of its strategic dimensions, the geopolitical dimension, which is basically has also to do with the internationalization of education and training. Europe understanding that just looking at ourselves, we are not understanding what is going on in the world, and we need to cooperate with countries like the ones where the ETF works, so that together we can share experiences and we can modernize vocational education and training and education in general to respond to what are societal and individual needs. Next slide, please. And following this flow of political initiatives, I would say that the most important for our sector in vocational education and training is the recommendation that was adopted by the member states on the 24th of November last year, which equips VET and provides a general framework and vision, strategic vision of how we should cooperate in Europe in terms of modernizing vocational education and training. So making sure that that curricula is there to provide the people, be they young or adults, with the skills for the green and digital transitions. It focuses on a learner-centered approach, understanding that people have different ways of interacting with the education system. So we have to make it flexible so that people that are working on the labor market can have access to upskilling and reskilling, that young people can interact with the system at various phases of their lives as well. And of course, with a big focus on the job training, on work-based learning, ensuring that people don't go to the education system and get out of the VET system with a qualification, but never had a real experience in the company. This is crucial, and that's why we have also a target for that. And of course, we also have a very important element which leads with you, which is the increasing the mobility of students, and in particular, also increasing the mobility not only within Europe, but also with countries throughout the world. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, having set the political scenario, if you want, of what has been the development in the last 6 months, I would like to, although most of you are very familiar with the Centers of Vocational Excellence, just to mention that this is really, I think, the first time we have an initiative that doesn't only look at one aspect, because quite often when we have challenges, we are looking at quality assurance, or we are looking at effectiveness of that, and that's why we had a council recommendation on quality assurance, then we had one on credit systems, we had one on apprenticeships. So usually we go on a piecemeal approach, and for the first time, we have an initiative that really looks at the various aspects of vocational training, and it does it by trying to make sure that the centers of vocational excellence are serving the local communities where they are installed, looking at what are the regional development objectives, looking at what are smart specialization strategies in certain regions, cluster strategies, industrial clusters, and making sure that that is attached and in synchrony with what are the needs of the economy and society in general. And of course, this implies what I was saying in the beginning, that we cannot do it. VET cannot do it alone. We have to reach out to universities, to research centers, to companies, chambers, to trade unions, to policymakers, and really have an approach which looks at what is needed around where we are and that is a proactive contributor to that change. Next slide, please. In order to pursue this objective, with the support of the Erasmus program, we have launched in the last 2 years 2 sets of calls for pilot projects. This is because while the ETF and the European Commission were developing the concept, we were not sure whether we were doing everything right. And we wanted to know, how is the market interpreting this initiative? How are the VET centers, how are the companies understanding it? So we launched these pilot calls to see what kind of projects were we attracting. Were they really what we wanted them to do, or were they coming up with new ideas that we should encapsulate? And in fact, we had 5 projects that we financed in 2019, pilot projects, that taught us a lot. They showed us that there were things that we were not really understanding that the market needed, and we adapted it. And in the second call we had in 2020, you have the 7 projects that we supported in 2020 and the 5 projects we supported in 2019. And you have the web links if you want to go and find more information on these pilot projects. But in 2020, I was saying, we already adapted to what we learned from 2019. And these 12 projects are sort of innovators in Europe because they are pilot projects. They are working on something which is completely new. But what they did was extremely important for us because it allowed us now for the next programming period, for the next 7 years, to have a design of vocational excellence, which I think fits with what they were asking us to do. So if we can go to the next slide, please, to tell you that because of these pilot projects, we managed in the new Erasmus program for the first time to have a specific action just on centers of vocational excellence. So in the next 7 years, the Council and the European Parliament gave this initiative 400 million euros for the next 7 years. It's a significant amount of money. It will allow us to finance 100 platforms of vocational excellence. And when I'm meaning platforms, I'm talking about VET centers in Europe, in the US, in Belarus, all over the world that want to get together with what we are doing in Europe. They can do it with the support of Erasmus. So this will be financing project with a duration of 4 years, with a budget of 4 million. Sorry, the budget of the project itself is 5 million. 4 million euros are given by Erasmus Plus as grants to support this. And I think the important difference to what was the pilot project is that now we can accept partners from all over the world. And if those partners prove that they bring an essential added value to the project, we will also co-finance the parts of partners coming from Ukraine, from Zimbabwe or Kenya, wherever it is. But of course, it's European money. Essentially, it's for European partners. But whenever we have partners from outside Europe that bring an added value to the project, they can also be financed. I think this is quite important to say. To finalize, I always tend to talk a little bit too much. I'm sorry, Daria. The next steps, we're going to publish the Erasmus Fall 2021 next month. Hopefully, there's still some delay. We don't know if it will be in April or May, but it will probably be in April. There will be an information session on this call organized by the executive agency and the European Commission. And there will also be a novelty, which is the establishment of a community of practice on vocational excellence, which will be launched on the 21st and 22nd of June 2021. This is being organized by our Dutch and Spanish friends, and it is going to take place in June, as I said, in the Basque country. The last thing I wanted to mention is that we want not only to finance these centers of vocational excellence, but we also want to provide support services with new research, with tools, with individualized possibility of providing expertise to those that want to engage in vocational excellence. We are working with our joint research center in order to provide these support services, which we hope will be fully running in 2021. So Daria, sorry for taking a little bit too long, but this is what I wanted to share with you, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Joao. Actually, this was the perfect presentation because we discussed about 10 minutes and these were 10 minutes. So amazing, because this leaves some time for discussion now. I invite again all the participants to share their questions and comments in writing in the respective chats. We'll pass them on to the speakers. I know that now Manuela has got a question for you, Joao. So Manuela, please.
So I ask Joao if he wants the easy one or the complicated one.
Well, it doesn't matter. There's never complicated questions. Only a stupid answer, maybe, but that's something we'll see.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Joao. I think actually during your presentation there were some sound issues. So
I'm sorry.
I think it's important maybe just to take a minute to repeat a couple of concepts that I think are important. And if you think about partner countries, which is really the area of work of the ETF and the primary, let's say, focus of the ENE network, even if we have many members from EU member states and joining even more, if you look forward to excellence and to what the European Union is doing on the future agenda, what role partner countries play in this picture, and what are the, let's say, priorities that you see coming on the agenda for the coming years, both in terms of, let's say, thematic domains and issues we should focus on, but also in terms of actions and joint actions. Some of those things you have covered, but because there were those sound breaks, I think it's good if we repeat them briefly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joao.
1 minute, Joao, because then we have another question.
Okay. I would say, responding very quickly, that, COVID has exposed the big challenge of digitalization we have for vocational education and training, not only in terms of the learners' capacities and skills to do it, the way we organize that, the way we teach and we learn. I think the green and the digital transitions are, I would say, the main themes on which we will possibly cooperate in the next few years, but not excluding other topics. And I think that the main idea of the platforms of vocational excellence and the way we want to interact with the ETF partner countries and also beyond ETF partner countries is understanding that the complexity of the world today is of such a dimension that nobody in isolation can understand what is going on. We need to cooperate with Australia. We need to learn of what is being done in a certain vocational center in Zimbabwe, because they are looking at ways of empowering young people to be entrepreneurs, to create their own companies. I think we all have to learn from each other. And it's a recognition of being humble that Europe understands that alone we cannot do it. We need to interact with what is being done outside. And that's why we count so much on the ETF with all your expertise outside Europe to help us achieve this objective.
Thank you very much, Joao, and also thanks to Manuela for her question. We have 1 minute and a half left, and there's a question by Jakob Zieber. Can you give an example what essential added value means for non-Erasmus Plus countries to take part in a COVE project? Joao.
Sure. Okay, so the idea is this. Let's take the aeronautics sector, just to give you an example. There are many countries outside Europe, Brazil, Ukraine, others, that are very good in the aeronautics sector. Maybe they have simulators, they have ways of teaching, they have new curricula, which can benefit the European Vocational Excellence Initiative. So European players that want to engage with countries outside Europe, not just because we want to save the world, because that's the way of, the kind of projects we are doing in development policy. This is more. This is trying to bring the very best without limiting it to Europe. If there is a vocational center outside that has an expertise in the way they are promoting entrepreneurship, in the way they are creating innovation hubs, in the way they are engaged in applied research, if they can contribute to what we are doing in Europe, and of course also benefit from what we're doing, because then it wouldn't make sense that someone from Ukraine wants to just contribute to what we are doing. They also want to learn. They want to learn from the good practices on business education partnerships that the Netherlands has, or on good initiatives on entrepreneurship that the Basque country has. So it's a win-win situation. But of course, we don't want through the vocational excellence or through Erasmus Plus, because that's the work of DEFCO. But with Erasmus Plus, it's really promoting excellence and sharing the very best we have in Europe with the very best we have outside Europe, so that we can collectively learn from each other and improve the way we are doing business in the vocational education and training sector. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you so much, Joao. Actually, there is one last and we have 30 seconds. Let's see if you manage. Hilary Umbuwa, does the EU funding include funding for infrastructural development for new planned VTP, not in existence yet, but planned for rural areas?
No, unfortunately not. The Erasmus program, as you know, can finance everything which is development of curricula, development of the networks, coming up with new methodologies of working, providing the right platforms for mobility to exist, for example, but we do not finance infrastructure. That would have to be in cases of countries outside Europe through the development policy of DEFCO, or in Europe with the other funds like the structural funds, ERDF, and so on. And just, sorry, Dario, just one last note to mention, one thing I wanted to tell you. One of the important novelties of Erasmus Plus is not only of opening the centers of vocational excellence to the world, but also mobility of vet learners and of teachers to the world. So as from this year, it will be possible that we send learners from Europe to any country in the world. So it is open for partnerships between vet centers from any country in the world with vet centers in Europe, and companies as well, of course. And we will also have the possibility, not in 2021, but as from 2022, to finance with Erasmus Plus some incoming mobility. So a learner coming from South Africa into Europe, if it is based on the partnerships between a vet center in Europe and one in South Africa, it will be possible to co-finance some incoming mobility of learners from other countries into Europe as well, under the Erasmus flag.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much to Joao Santos from Directorate General Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusions of the European Commission. Thanks for your speech, and all participants, keep on writing your questions, because we'll take them on board and share replies on open space after this meeting, or even in the chat during the meeting. So thanks a million, and I officially launch session 2. Session 2, which is about introducing the achievements of the ENE network in 2020. And I'd like to immediately give the floor to my colleague Florian Kadlec from the European Training Foundation. I remind to the various coordinators of the discussion groups to keep an eye on the time, and I will keep the time for the presentations with the famous bell you've heard at the beginning of this meeting. Over to you, Florian.
Thank you very much, Daria. I hope you can hear me well. Warm welcome also from my side. I'm Florian Kadlec. Within the ETF's ENE network, I'm focusing on lifelong career guidance. So we will have plenty of opportunities in the future to work together, I'm sure. In the next hour, we will have 2 sessions looking on the one hand side at what was achieved up to now, and on the other side on how to move forward with regards to 2 topics. One is the ENE self-assessment framework, and the other one is the role of centers of vocational excellence in work-based learning. So starting with the first, to better understand the development of needs and ambitions of its members, the ETF developed an online self-assessment framework. And that self-assessment framework helps to establish a baseline for the members' own development according to their set of dimensions and levels which are shared with the network. So in relation to this baseline, the centers can establish their own priorities, their actions, of course, taking account their aims and environment. So the network will permit, the framework, will permit the centers to review their own progress over time. It will permit to plan support services and to broker cooperation. So let's look at Chapter 1, COVI's Development Towards Excellence. Julian Stanley, the ETF's vet teachers and trainer specialist here, will provide us with more details about the framework. So please, Julian, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can see me. Good morning. I'm Julian Stanley. I've been working with my colleague Doriana Monteloni to run the self-assessment tool. And I'm going to talk today particularly about what the tool shows that the codes in the network are working on and what they want to achieve. We've got limited time, so we're going to focus on the priority areas of development. Unfortunately, we have with us today a couple of colleagues from COVES, Daniela Manic from the Aviation Academy in Belgrade and Liha Arasti from Miguel Altuna Lambidi Hesikitai in Begara in the Basque Country in Spain. And they're going to help us by telling us about the actual practices going on in those schools. So next slide, please. Great, thank you very much. So this first slide is a summary to try and give you an idea of which areas of excellence COVES in our network are currently working on. And you can see at the top there, we have Dimension B, and you can see at the bottom, Dimension B is pedagogy and professional development. We pulled out one of the indicators there, which is that all teachers should have relevant industrial professional work experience. But that's indicative of all of that dimension. In other words, the dimension of professional development and of pedagogy. And we see that more than half of all of the centers in the ENE network, or at least half of those who completed the self-assessment, are working on that currently. Or they're looking to achieve that within a couple of years. So that's a priority area of development. Underneath that, we see skills for greening, which Jao mentioned as being a priority area for the Commission, but it turns out also to be a priority area of development for the ENE members. And under that, we see autonomy, because C is the area of autonomy, of developing capacity to run your own affairs, to control your own curriculum. And we see that about 50%, 51% in fact, of all of the ENE members are working on developing that indicator and generally the area of autonomy. The next one down is the area of smart skills specialization. We see 47% are working on that area, and so on down. So this gives us already an idea of what the ENE members are seeking to do. Could we go on, please, to the next slide? Okay, so in this next slide, we drill down to look in a little bit more detail, particularly at the area of pedagogy, so that we can see within pedagogy which particular elements people are working on. And what these numbers show is they show, not in percentage terms, but in real terms, I think 72 schools participated in this self-assessment when it took place at the end of last year. And it gives you some idea of which particular elements of these areas of excellence schools are currently focusing on or prioritizing in their development work. So we see, for example, schools are looking to increase the number of training events that they provide for their own staff. Schools are looking to increase the amount of collaboration that teachers do in developing their lessons, in developing their programs of study. We see that teachers are looking to develop formative assessment for both individual and group tasks. We see that schools are wanting to develop their capacity to evaluate the impact of professional development. At the bottom of the chart, there's a group of relatively highly rated areas of development, which are to do with collaboration, to do with working with other schools, to do with working with industry, to do with sharing their practice across networks. And these are all areas which are relatively important for schools at the moment, areas where they're investing time, where they're seeking to develop. And obviously, what we're thinking is that if these are the areas which are the most important development areas for centres in the ENE network, these are the areas that the network should be seeking to support. And we envisage this support as being support that centres can give to one another by sharing what they're doing, by showing what they're experimenting with to address these areas. Next slide, please. So the way we think we might be able to approach this within the network is to build what we're calling practice exchange communities. And these would be communities of perhaps 10 to 20 NA centres of vocational excellence, which would collaborate. And they would collaborate by regularly exchanging good practices on a digital platform or by meeting them face-to-face. That would give them an opportunity, we think, to build a relationship of trust, to have some understanding of what they were doing and where they got to and what their priorities were. And that trust would be a basis for which them to say, well, perhaps we can cooperate, perhaps we can develop some curriculum together, perhaps we can apply to participate in this project together. Because, of course, that kind of cooperation depends upon a little bit of trust. It might enable them, therefore, to decide where the overlaps in development were. You know, which were the areas which were interesting to both of these centres, or to 2 or 3 or more centres, which were common interests, where for a period of time it would be worthwhile for them to cooperate. And additionally, of course, it's an opportunity for COVs to enhance their international engagement and to enhance their profile. And we know that this is also an area where many COVs in our network are looking to develop their presence. So that's explaining to you what we've learned about the priorities. But I want to go on now to give you an opportunity to find out about the kind of good practice which we've discovered exists. And this morning we're going to look particularly at good practice in the area of professional development, but also in the area of pedagogy. And rather than me telling you about that, we've invited teachers from COVs to tell you more about that. So I'm going to start off by inviting Daniela Manic from the Aviation Academy in Serbia to talk about some of the practices which have been going on in the Aviation Academy in order to enable teachers to develop new capacities, to learn from other schools, and to share those new ideas across the staff of the academy. So, Daniela, can I ask you to say a few words about what you've been doing in the Aviation Academy?
Hello, nice to meet you. Good morning to everyone. I'm proud to be today in this conference, and of course on behalf of my school to be a member of this great network. Actually, I'm an English teacher, an aviation English teacher, and I'm the coordinator for international cooperation and as well. So today I will share with you a few words about my school, just to introduce a little bit. Next slide, please. And then I will explain you how we develop teaching skills and competencies. Next slide, please. Thank you. Actually, we are the unique VAT school in region because we teach military and civil aviation educational profiles. And we are, we are very well known for dual education and for Erasmus mobilities. And what we used up from the experience in Erasmus, for example, in the last year, we have a cooperation with too many schools from Europe, aviation schools, and the most interesting experience that we acquired in the mobilities is, for example, how to use digital teaching tools in teaching practice. For example, I had that possibilities to be involved in that mobility, and 7 days before COVID, I got a lot of experience and expertise about digital tools, and that was shown as very useful in the forthcoming years. So how we do and how we develop and share and disseminate what we learned on these mobilities is after the mobility, we organize a meeting, and then we organize some experimental lessons. All other teachers who are ready to and who are willing to learn something new, they attend my lesson. I show them what I learned and what competence and what teaching materials have acquired. And this is not only how we do it in my school. We disseminate and share these experiences and these skills and competencies all around the country. So this is a part of teachers Erasmus mobilities is something that we are supposed to do throughout the project duration. A lot of innovations were implemented after each mobility. For example, teaching resources and materials were adjusted, improved. Some syllabus, content syllabus were improved. New subjects were also involved. So, we function like a big family. We, since this is a vet school, we have a cooperation with vet teachers. So we share experience, having a lot of meetings, discussions, having experimental lessons. And at the end of all these activities, all these steps, these activities are recognized in my school and in my country as a professional development inside the institution. So, teachers' attendance are graded with some, points, and then these activities are recognized as professional development of a specific competence or teaching competence in all.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Daniela. I think that's really interesting to see how effective you are, not only at reaching out to learn from other schools, but how systematic you are about sharing these new pedagogies with your staff, enabling them to practice and develop them, and then recognizing this new learning. Because without those later stages, I think it's clear that the transmission of new pedagogies is often relatively weak. I'm going to invite now Liher Erasti from Bulgaria in the Basque Country to talk a little bit about the new pedagogies which they've introduced. And I think it's very interesting to see how these new pedagogies have been introduced into an environment, a curriculum where they're teaching advanced manufacturing. Liher.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you to everyone for coming here. As you can see my slide, my name is Liher Erasti, and I am a teacher and pedagogic coordinator of the TASI team for the mechanical production scheduling cycle at Miguel Altuna. The public is a public center, and it's located in the Basque Country, northeast part of Spain, close to the French border. And the center is composed of 76 teachers and 608 students. All the training cycle that are taught are industrial. And although we are not a large center, we are within a network of centers led by the Basque government. We can change slide, please. And the pedagogical framework I will talk about is called TASI, and it was created by Technica, a Basque Beta Applied Research Center, promoted by the Education Department of the Basque government in 2013. And the main methodology that the TASI uses is challenge-based collaborative learning, and it has like 4 principal characteristics. Well, this is not the last. Okay. The third characteristics is intermodality, and Here we think that the challenges that the students have to solve, they have to be as close as possible to reality. And that's why we must involve all the subjects in these challenges. And of course, when we talk about collaborative, like our students work on teams, we try to make them heterogeneous team so they can learn from each other. And we make them to play some different roles so they can feel like a real working environment. The second characteristic is self-managed teaching teams. What it means that all the learning process is controlled by a small number of teachers. Like we meet every week and we have the responsibility of the schedules, spaces, what material they use, what challenges they're gonna do. So that's the difference. Like we are like kind of 4 or 5 teachers for all the cycle, and we stay the whole years with the same student, and all the classes, like all the subjects, like we give them to all the subjects. The third characteristic is the evaluate competencies. For us, the evaluation is really important, and we try to involve the student on them. We separate these competencies in technical skills and in soft skills. Of course, to evaluate the technical skill, we still continue doing exams because we think that they have to have some minimum learnings to pass these challenges. But we have incorporated, we are incorporating our school to the Industry 4.0, and we are digitizing our workshop so they can measurement their evolution, like checking how many hours they are working, who is sending the drawings to the machine, and this all. And from the other part, like we evaluate the soft skill. For this, we have a skill evolution tool created by Technica, and I have to say that we just don't evaluate the teacher, the soft skill, even the students evaluate themselves. Of course, as I said, that evaluation is really important. Like we used to do some feedbacks to involve the students in the learning process. And on this feedback, we just talk with them to see what is correct, what they have to improve, and make some arrangement with them just to make this improvement. And of course, all of this can't be done if we don't have like new adapted learning spaces. We are quite lucky because we have a new building that was built in 2019, and we have created like flexible open spaces and facilities that encourage active collaborative work, as you can see on the pictures. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. I think that's very impressive to see that not only at Miguel Altuna there's sort of 1 or 2 good practices, but that you have a systemic approach to active pedagogy, so that you have built in adaptable environments, collaboration between teachers, collaborative learning between students, authentic learning, formative assessment. So it's impressive, I think, that you've woven together all these improvements in pedagogy in order to produce a very high quality, a very intensive and engaging form of learning, I think. We've got an opportunity now for some questions. I don't see any questions as yet, but if there are questions, it's an opportunity now for you to signal questions. And if those questions can be passed over to me, we can take some questions. Perhaps I can start off with a question, seeing as we don't seem to be any questions as yet. I wonder, Liha, if I can ask you. I mean, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to persuade teachers to take up new ways of teaching. Teachers who perhaps have been working for a long time and are quite successful in their teaching. They're highly skillful and knowledgeable, and they get results. And it's a bit difficult sometimes to persuade them to change their habits of a lifetime. Can you give us any advice about how that can be done?
I know it's really difficult. Like we are trying to change a culture, and of course, like teachers that are like teaching a lot of time, they don't want to change. But with the help of the government and Technica, like we are doing different courses, and of course, like we separate, like each cycle have 1 coordinator. And of course, we try to push and to make a team culture and try to help to those teachers that they don't want to change, just to make them easier to make the change. And just like making every week meetings, fighting a bit. Like I think we are changing, and I think it's really nice experience.
Okay, thank you. I think it's good that you end with the notion of it being a nice experience, because I think, you know, if everyone is having a good time, and if they feel everyone else is having a good time, they're much more likely to take the risk of changing, I think. I mean, Daniela, can I ask you a similar question? I mean, you said that you offered these experiences for those teachers who were interested, who wanted to change, and they were the ones who came to these experiments. What do you do about the teachers who are not so interested? I mean, some of the teachers in the academy perhaps are not so interested in learning, you know, new ways of doing things from other schools. Have you got any way of engaging them?
I have to admit there are no interest teachers. Everyone is interested in innovations.
Wonderful.
I don't know. Maybe this is you know, we owe that to our headmaster. He is, you know, someone who always moves us forward, and we are always interested in something new. Sometimes, and of course, there is in Serbia and in our school there is a law or a regulation on teachers' development. So we are obliged to earn 100 points in 5 years as you know, as a part of teacher training. And this is how we do. You know, there are some seminars and workshops that are accredited, but this is the easier and you know, cheaper way to improve your competencies. And we really work as a team. You know, there are 10 English teachers in my school, and we really cooperate. And we cooperate. There is a cooperation between, as I already mentioned, between the general subject teachers and VET teachers. So, for example, I'm an aviation teacher, and I really have to know a lot about aeronautics, but, you know, it's not my expertise. So I need to consult my colleagues. Sometimes they consult me because we are involved in a bilingual or CLIL teaching. So they need my assistance for English or language pedagogy, etc. So we really cooperate. It's not just formal part. Okay, we do what is what we are expected to do, but the point is, do we really need it, and do we really apply it later in teaching practice? So it's not something that is imposed. We do it really for our own benefits and for the benefits of our students. And we always discuss. For example, if I got back from some mobility and share the experience and share some, present some, new teaching resources or digital tools, we later discuss, is it applicable in our school, is it efficient or not? And, all decisions are brought mutually.
Daniela, thank you very much. And thank you for your full answer, because I think that makes it clear why you succeed, the answers you've just given there. I've got a question from Sandra Mangas here. She asks in particular about the skill evolution tool, Leah. She says, is this something which teachers created to evaluate their students' soft skills? Is it a tool which is available somewhere? I think what Sandra is asking is, can she please have access to this tool? Leah, can you tell us, please?
Yes. No, this is a tool that Technica, the Applied Research Center that is under the Basque government, designed. And now we are using it just to evaluate the soft skills, and we are trying to make it better because it's quite difficult to evaluate autonomy and other soft skills, but we are trying as well to involve there the technical skills. And I don't know if it's open. I know that in the webpage of Technica that it was in my presentation, I know that all the information is there. I think maybe you can write to them. And here, in the soft skills, what we try to make is the teachers evaluate the 50%, the students evaluate themselves 20%, and the team evaluate to the person 30%. So we are trying with that tool to evaluate make students involved in the evaluation and like what it says that they are real students and they feel really well with it. And I don't know, we are just trying it.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. I mean, as you know, I mean, one of the things that we're proposing on the basis of this session is to try and set up practice exchange communities where there would be an opportunity to share this kind of practice. And if we decide that this is the practice exchange community which members of the ENE network want to belong to, and if this is an interest, I guess, you know, we could invite Technica to such a community and invite them to share this tool and to explain it in greater depth to us. I think one of the important things to learn from all this is quite a lot of these developments are quite challenging and quite demanding. They need a lot of time, and it's difficult for any one center to do all the work. If you have a center who invests in developing a evaluation tool, then it makes sense to share that. So I've got a question from Akar Botsnevov. He asked, how many credits would a teacher gain from a particular program? So I guess can you, Daniela? I mean, suppose for example, a teacher, you know, participated in this program and they developed a new way of teaching. How many credits would they gain from that?
I'm not sure. I'll have to check. Maybe I can share later the table with defined actions and credits. But for example, just think of about 20 credits for internal internal training. Internal, when I say internal, meaning in my school, inside the institution. So it depends on, for example, if I am the presenter, I earn more credits. For example, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, depending on the difficulties and the importance of the activity that I present. And the participants also earn. So you always have to justify and to report the discussion, the conclusions, to the presentations. So it's not, you know, just easy to sit around the table, take a coffee and speak. You need to prepare that meeting, or you need to prepare that lesson, and both authors or organizers and participants earn different credits. But you know, if you are interested, I can translate all the activities translate.
I think Daniela, what you said is really important, because I think you've told us it's differentiated. The more you do, the more points you get, and moreover, it's not a formal program. It's demonstration of activity in the school which earns the credits. It's not going and attending a 3-day course or a 4-day course. It's actually doing peer learning, and I think that's a really excellent model for how professional development should be looked and how it should be recognized. Now, I'm going to stop taking questions there. There's a few more questions which I'm afraid I'm going to not have time for, because I want to hand things back to Florian, because Florian is now going to run some questions for the whole, all participants through Mentimeter. And I want to have a little bit of time at the end to see what comes out of that. So Florian, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Julian, and thanks to our guest speakers and to the people who asked questions. So we will now run a very short survey using Mentimeter. So please, can I ask our chat moderators to post the link to the survey in the chat? Please, all participants, click on the link in the chat. By clicking on the link, a new window in your web browser will open where you can see the Mentimeter survey. When you finish answering, please come back again to the Zoom interface, because we will show the results there. Now, about the questions. So Julian just mentioned, ETF plans to set up a pilot practice exchange community called PEC in short. And we would like to take account of your answers in launching the pilot community. So please tell us, you see the questions, how you might use such a community. You can choose one or more answers there. And also please tell us, what themes do you want the community to focus on? Here you can give a preference, the highest, receives your first priority. The lowest ranked is the lowest priority. Julian will then help reflect a bit on the results. So how you might use such a community and what themes do you want the community to focus on? I give you a couple of minutes. When you are done with your answering, please come back again to the Zoom interface because we will show the answers there. So maybe 2 more minutes. There are still some answers coming in, so we wait maybe 1 more minute and then we'll hand back to Julian to look at the results. Okay. Do you want to reflect on the first answer, first question, maybe Julian, and then we move to the next?
Yeah, thank you very much, Florian. I'm aware that we're running out of time on this session, but I think it's pretty clear that people are interested in exchanging practices. You know that 34 people have said that they want to exchange practices. But there's pretty much a pretty similar number of people who are looking to actually cooperate. I mean, they're looking from that exchange of practices to actually cooperate, to actually work together. So I think that's very interesting, and it's encouraging to see that willingness to collaborate and to benefit from that. If you can share on screen the results of the second question, Florian, or if Pomilio can do that. Great, thank you very much indeed. Okay, so that's rather exciting because of the possibilities that we listed, because we provided a menu of different areas for these practice exchange communities. The one which seems to be most popular, which has got the most choices, is to work on teacher development, and that's followed by adult and continuing education, followed by green skills. Followed by social inclusion. So that's a pretty clear message to us. Our plan is to start fairly soon, to do a little bit more research, to invite you to respond to a very short questionnaire, which we will send to you shortly. That will find out a little bit more clearly what kind of platform you want, what kind of cooperation you want. And on the basis of that, we hope to be shortly launching 1 or 2 practice exchange communities, which will give us all an opportunity to try out this, to see if it's worth our while, and to see what we benefit from it. I'm going to stop there because I know that we're very short of time. I'd like to thank Daniela and Lihe for their contributions, and I'd like to congratulate their schools on their excellent practice, which I think we've all learned from. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attention and for your contributions, and I hand now back to Daria.
It's actually me, Julian.
Oh,
but
I beg your pardon. Sorry, Florian.
No problem. I mean, Daria is of course more attractive than me. I fully understand you. So thank you very much, Julian, and thanks to our speakers. We move to Chapter 2, the role of Centers of Vocational Excellence in Work-Based Learning. In that second session now, the focus is on the question of how the Centers of Vocational Excellence can support work-based learning in companies. As you know, work-based learning is a key aspect of education-business collaboration, and it is one of the 8 priority thematic areas of the ENE network. The 6 countries that are involved in this particular initiative are Albania, Armenia, Belarus, Moldova, North Macedonia, and Kazakhstan. So what has been achieved so far? A baseline study was produced and already carried out to identify shared strengths and opportunities for cooperation and for development, and for the mid to long term, to also assess progress of members and to develop case studies for peer learning at a later stage. Also, coaching and peer learning activities are offered to the members of the network, mainly by centers of vocational excellence located in the EU. We've started work with the Latvian Vocational Education Association, and we will hear them also now. So Stefan Thomas, who is a specialist in VET policies and system at the ETF here, is leading on this work in ETF. Stefan, what is this initiative about? Can you give us a brief overview, please?
Yeah, thank you, Florian, and good morning to all of you. A very warm welcome also from my side. Can you hear me well? I hope so.
Yes, we can hear you well.
Thanks. So we have actually been observing for some time that, let's say, when countries are moving in the direction of introducing more work-based learning options or work-based learning of higher quality, that the role of schools, of vocational schools, is essential in such reforms. And schools can indeed, they can do a lot. They can help companies to find the right students, and of course, they can also help students to find the right companies. Schools can make sure that students are well prepared when they come to a training company for the first time. Here we are, for instance, talking about counseling and career guidance, in particular for young students, but also for adults. We have to bear in mind that young students in many of our partner countries have to make their educational choice, their vocational choice at a very young age. Another way for schools to get involved is to provide pedagogical support to trainers in companies. A topic that was also touched by my colleagues in the last session. Together, schools and companies have a role in developing curricula and learning plans, individual learning plans for the workplace. Finally, we could say schools can support also the assessment of what students have learned at the workplace. So these are just a few examples. There are many more. So what we wanted to know was what is actually happening in our partner countries, or at least in some of our partner countries, and you mentioned already the 6 countries we're working with in this project, Florian, in this respect. And we also wanted to give them, or some schools in those countries, the opportunity to connect and to meet. So far, only virtually, but that is hopefully going to change soon. More concretely, the initiative offers an opportunity for vocational schools in the 6 countries you mentioned, Albania, Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, in North Macedonia, and in Moldova, to find out where they stand. We will hear about that from our Latvian partners, but also where there are opportunities for improvement and for collaboration with others, among them, but also with partners in member states. As you mentioned, Florian, we do this project together with a partner, and that is the Latvian VET Provider Associations. We clearly benefit from their recent experience in system reform. They have successfully introduced more and high-quality work-based learning in their system. The system is based on a strategic partnership between public authorities and social partners, and they have a very well working transnational cooperation with the neighboring countries in the Baltic region. For instance, just to give you one example, they have established the Baltic Alliance for Apprenticeship with their neighbors in Estonia and Lithuania. So we are happy to have all these countries and schools on board, and we are looking very much forward to the next steps in this project.
Thank you very much, Stefan. And I'm happy to welcome now 3 guest speakers. Let's start with Ms. Ilse Brante. Ilse, with your team from the Latvian VET Provider Association, you had a look at current work-based learning practices. How do you see the situation in the 7 schools? Please, let's give us an insight.
Hello, everybody, dear colleagues. I am Ilse Brante from the Vocational Education Association of Latvia, Director of Ogre Technical School. In order to ensure the compliance of vocational education with the requirements of employers, various solutions and new forms of training are searched. One of them, the implementation of vocational education learning process in work-based learning. In Latvia, We have accumulated experience in work-based learning since 2013. It is important to gain the experience of other countries in the implementation of work-based learning. In cooperation with the European Training Foundation, we have learned about the experience of 7 vocational education institutions, 7 COVES in 6 countries: Albania, Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Moldova, North Macedonia. Vocational Education Association of Latvia created a survey. The survey had 2 parts. The first part, information on the work-based learning implementation process in the 7 COVES, and second part, the role of vocational education institution or COVES in implementation of work-based learning. On this slide, we can see to extent which 7 COVES from 6 countries are involved in the implementation of work-based learning. And green means is to very large extent. We can see that all 7 COVES are involved in work-based learning. Any of these COVES have experience about the development of work-based learning in one teaching program, but all COVES will develop work-based learning together with companies in all teaching programs and will have new experience about the development in work-based learning together with companies. The results of the survey allow us to conclude in which direction the vocational education institutions should work more. Next slide, please. Here in this slide, we can see that the COVES have a leading, coordinating role in cooperation together with companies, in testing a company's ability to implement work-based learning, in developing criteria for the evaluation of work-based learning, and organize different events to involve companies in the implementation of work-based learning. Next slide, please. It is very important that all COVES believe that it is necessary to strengthen cooperation between vocational education institutions and companies. Cooperation between a vocational education institution and a company increases the quality of vocational education. Vocational education meets the requirements of employers. Employers become co-responsible for the implementation training process of vocational education and increase the prestige of vocational education. The key to the success of work-based learning is the company. When we have the company, when company accepts the training, our students in company have possibilities to develop work-based learning. I am today together with my colleagues from Liepāja Technical School. The next slide, please. and I give the name to my colleagues from Liepāja.
Well, thank you, Ilse. Hello, everyone. My name is Agris Ruperts, and I'm a headmaster of Liepāja State Technical School and also a chairman of Vocational Association of Latvia. And as Ilse mentioned, within this project, we prepared a questionnaire for these 7 schools who participated in this survey. But after that, we also made interviews with each of these schools to clarify the answers from the questionnaire. And after these answers in the questionnaires and after these interviews, we pointed some opportunities common for all these 7 schools. And today I maybe more detailed will talk about 4 of them. First of all, we discovered, as Ilse mentioned before, that in these 7 schools, work-based learning is not implemented in every curricula, in every training program, but just in 1 or 2, depending on the specialization of a particular school. Of course, it is an opportunity to implement work-based learning in each vocational training program, but from our experience, I should say that there could be some problems in this implementation in some particular qualifications. And for instance, in bookkeeping, companies maybe wouldn't like to have students which are making their bookkeeping because they could consider that it is their commercial secret. Or there should be also some qualifications when work-based learning is forbidden because of age restrictions of students. For instance, it could be in some training programs related to energy. But also the benefit for schools, if we implement this work-based learning in more and more programs, for schools, it is a good thing to save some resources. So it means at school, we don't need to buy expensive and then the complicated equipment, which is located at school, but our students are going outside the school and see the real life, real production in companies. The next thing which came out from the interviews is that it is very hard for schools to work with companies to make them interested in work-based learning. But we must show, as education providers, we must show the benefit for entrepreneurs. In many countries, the labor shortage becomes more and more important, but by engaging companies in work-based learning, companies from the very beginning of study process can form and build their future employee, and successful organization of work-based learning will also help enterprises to create and to keep a very good image of the company in the society. The next opportunity for these schools is that if we are implementing work-based learning, we can modify curricula according to the needs of labor market. Of course, in many countries, this percentage of theory and practice in curricula is determined by the state, but we can also be more flexible and make this training program more better for the needs of the company. And it is easier if companies are united in professional associations, because for schools it is easier to speak with the association, not with each particular company. And in this case, both parties, companies or schools, are winner in if the cooperation between schools and companies is successful. By informing society about activities in work-based learning, companies will improve their image and get more clients, but schools can attract more and more students. How to speak with the companies, how to make them interested, we will tell more detailed for our colleagues from these 7 schools in the next coaching session, which will be next week. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Agris. That was very interesting, and Ilse for that good introduction of giving us that overview, very rich information on which we can work. I would like to give now the word to Mr. Sanarbek Yarigasinov. Sorry for not pronouncing it correctly, maybe. He's the director of the EPEC Petrotechnic Higher College in Atirau, Kazakhstan. And I'm happy to have you. Please give us very briefly a short overview of your college. Just a minute, and then I'll have 2 other questions for you.
Okay, thank you very much. As you introduced, my name is Sanarbek Yarigasinov. I'm a director of the EPEC Petrotechnic College located in western part of Kazakhstan. If you put on the next slide, please. The EPEC Petrotechnic is just leading innovative college in Kazakhstan that was founded in 2013. Currently, EPEC Petrotechnic provides training for 8 specialties in oil and gas industry, as shown on the slides: electrical supply, chemical engineering, and so on. Currently, the current contingent is 1,370 students. The training is conducted in English, which ensures the flexibility of employing the graduates and also meets the requirements of the future employers. Educational program in our institution is built on a modular basis, which provides flexibility and allows quickly update our training models, programs, when the requirement on the labor markets demands, through the industrial councils and technical committees, taking into account new achievements of science and the educational practice. When I'm talking about the industrial council, which consists of the companies providing or working in the oil and gas industry in Kazakhstan. We regularly host that. Hello, sorry, you have a question?
Yeah. Thank you very much for that brief overview. I just wanted to add one more question to that, because as you started explaining, at your college, how do you organize work-based learning with companies? Could you give us 1 or 2 good practice examples very briefly?
Yeah, on this, when we work with the industrial council, with the companies, we in this arena, we talk about these requirements that we need. One of the things that I agree with my colleagues also said earlier, that at this moment, work-based learning is very important, which is we also practice it through the dual training, dual educational system, which is one of the most forms and training that right now is needed, and which is one of the formats that for employers to prepare for themselves and reduce the cost for the and time for training and for searching the employees. This is and we practice that from the second age of learning, where the students go to the workplaces and show their what they learned in theory, and they use them on the practice. And now, I mean, our students are currently demanded, and after the graduation, we normally have a 98% of the employment rate almost every year.
Thank you. Can I ask one more question to you? Linking back to the Latvian Vet Providers Association, looking at the future, what will be the main thematic areas for cooperation from your school's perspective?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as my colleague earlier mentioned, we are also actively participating in the coaching sessions that Latvia is doing. Also from the educational system and this work-based learning, we do have similarities, of course, but some differences. So we will be continuing working with Latvia to gain something and also share with other institutions our experiences in the education arena.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today, Sanabek. We will not take up questions now from all the participants, as mentioned by Daria, but we will collect them and take them up later. I would now like to thank all the presentation, all the people who presented now, Agris, Ilse and Sanabek, and turn your attention again to another short survey that we want to run, another survey on Mentimeter. So please, chat moderators, post again a link in the chat. Please, again, everybody click on the link. Again, in a new web browser, you will see the Mentimeter survey. Once you've finished answering, please come back again to the Zoom interface, and there we will show the results. Stefan will reflect with you on the results again. So what do we want to know? Please, there are three options. There is the question, the three most important aspects of work-based learning at your school. Please tick three of the most important options for you. So either getting employers on board, or guidance for students and parents, or curriculum development, or assessment of students, pedagogical support. Take a minute and provide your answer, please. So I see already we have more than 20 answers. So let's wait maybe one more minute. Choose the three most important aspects for you, for your school. "30 more seconds, and then we'll hand back to Stefan. Okay, Stefan, do you want to start maybe while people are still answering?
Yeah, we see it's a tight race, obviously, between, let's say, joint curriculum development, schools and companies, and also getting employers on board. That is obviously, let's say, a challenge in many of our partner countries to get employers on board, especially the micro, small enterprises. Usually not so much a problem with the big enterprises. And then, curriculum development with companies also to adjust curricula, learning plans, learning programs to local industry needs. That seems to be also something. Then number three, industry attachments for teachers. That is an important message for my colleague Julian. And curriculum development is a message to the CNL team in our house in the ETF, the Creating New Learning. So obviously there is a demand, and we will discuss this internally. Very interesting. Thanks to everyone who participated in this.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Stefan, and thank you everybody for participating. You see, our agenda is very full, so we have to move on quickly, but I think we heard very, very interesting, inspirational experiences from partner countries and from our Latvian association as well. Thank you all for that. In the next part of that event, we will look at how ENE cooperates with the Skillman Network, and we will look at autonomy of centers of vocational excellence and their role in public-private partnerships. So stay with us. It's going to be more interesting also afterwards. Thank you all, and back to Daria.
Thank you very much, Florian, Stefan, and to Julian and all the distinguished speakers of this session. It was indeed super interesting. I'd just like to raise that I've received a comment from some of the participants in the chat that it appears that in this last Mentimeter, only one answer could be selected, even if the question said the three most important. We apologize for that. Nevertheless, the results can be read also in terms of priority ranking, but we'll get back to that maybe with you, and eventually we can raise this question again after the event on our open space and share the results with you. I see that colleagues are nodding, so we're perfectly on time. I'm sure that we all need a coffee or a tea or a break anyway, so we have 10 minutes to get relaxed, and we'll see each other again in 10 minutes sharp, so 11:15 Central European time. I invite you to keep the volume on and the video on your as a recipient on your computers, because during coffee break there will be an amazing video loop. Thanks a lot. See you in 10 minutes.
S'il fallait un seul mot pour décrire les IT, ce serait innovation. On ne peut pas imaginer un secteur de tissu économique où il n'y a pas de lauréat de l'ESIT. Faites une première visite de l'école pour réaliser que ces ateliers et laboratoires sont de véritables mini-usines industrielles. Les infrastructures académiques sont impressionnantes. Il n'est pas étonnant de trouver au sein des campus des ateliers ou des laboratoires d'ingénierie où les étudiants expérimentent et construisent leurs projets. La recherche est la grande valeur ajoutée de l'école. Les produits et services du futur sont conçus en lien avec les besoins des marchés. Tous les enseignants sont irrigués par les travaux des enseignants-chercheurs et des experts du métier.
Les IT évoluent dans un secteur extrêmement porteur qui est essentiel au niveau de l'économie marocaine. C'est une des épines dorsales de l'emploi et de la création d'emplois et de valeurs dans notre pays. Je vous remercie d'avance de ce que vous faites pour le Maroc, parce que vous allez créer de l'emploi vous-même, devenir pour certains des entrepreneurs et avoir des entreprises.
Fruit d'une étroite collaboration entre les pouvoirs publics et la MIT, les IT accompagnent les étudiants depuis 1996 avec des formations qui maximisent leurs chances d'intégrer les entreprises de leur choix. Les IT fait la part belle à l'environnement du travail. Chaleureux et créatif, tout est pensé pour favoriser une vie estudiantine épanouie. À l'ESIT, il y a une vie après les cours. Les étudiants sont motivés par la richesse des activités culturelles, sportives, citoyennes et solidaires. Et vivre sur le campus de l'ESIT est une expérience unique. Tout est mis à disposition pour que les étudiants profitent au maximum de leurs études sur les 3 cycles. Pourquoi choisir l'ESIT ? L'école publique délivre des diplômes d'État. Les ateliers des travaux pratiques sont assimilés à des mini-usines industrielles. L'ouverture sur l'international et les partenariats avec des écoles prestigieuses en France et au Canada. Les IT forment des ressources aptes à développer des compétences pointues et à prendre en charge des postes de responsabilité en entreprise selon la filière suivie. 800 bacheliers scientifiques et économiques sont chaque année intéressés par le cycle Licence Pro, conquis par la qualité du cursus pluridisciplinaire et les capacités d'innovation permanente de l'école. Le diplôme de licence pro s'intègre dans l'architecture LMD, licence, master, doctorat, adopté par le ministère de l'Enseignement supérieur au Maroc. La formation est modulaire et se base sur la maîtrise des compétences. Les programmes sont développés en partenariat avec le ministère de l'Éducation du Québec et le projet canadien APC Maroc. Grâce à l'appui du Career Center, le diplômé pourra soit intégrer directement le milieu professionnel, soit poursuivre ses études en cycle ingénieur ou master à l'ESIT ou dans d'autres établissements au Maroc ou à l'étranger. L'accès par concours au cycle licence professionnelle de 3 ans pour les bacheliers scientifiques et économiques ouvre le champ de tous les possibles. 5 filières sont proposées. Faites le choix de votre carrière, intégrez l'ESIT.
The main strategic goal of Moscow State Educational Complex is to improve the quality of secondary and vocational education, to train qualified employees who are able to work effectively in modern systems of developing and flexible production, with a high level of patriotic, civic and moral education. The educational complex implements 156 educational programs, of which 34 are basic, 15 programs are in the top 50 most popular professions. The integration of general and secondary vocational education in Moscow State Educational Complex is focused on WorldSkills standards, regular professional development of teaching staff, and close cooperation with partner enterprises. Nowadays, the educational complex has more than 130 signed agreements with the employees in training staff for the industrial sector of the economy, as well as 8 of them are successfully functioning as basic departments. Students of the educational complex practice their skills in the territories of enterprises of the military-industrial complex, pharmacy companies, residents of the Technopolis Moscow Special Economic Zone in the Moscow Chamber of Commerce and Industry, as well as the company DMG Mori, the world leader in the machine tool industry. In 2020, Moscow State Educational Complex became a platform for federal educational and methodological unification, which allows to build intersectoral cooperation between enterprises of pharmacy industry and industrial sector of the economy. Staff training is conducted in accordance with federal state educational and world skills standards. Thus, Moscow State Educational Complex is an experimental platform for the organization of replication and broadcasting of programs and technologies for rapid training in all regions, providing strategic planning services and a guarantee of employment in the specialty for employees, and for the state, an established mechanism for identifying demand in the market of professional educational services.
Hello and welcome back to the second event of the launch of the ENE network for the Centers of Excellence. I hope you had a lovely coffee break or a tea break and that you enjoyed having a look at the videos that we have just shared with you. But let's go back immediately into the business and I officially launch session 3, which is about more achievements of 2020. I'd like to remind to all of you to please keep on sending comments, questions in writing. We'll take them on board, if not during this discussion on the open space later on, or even tomorrow during the continuation of this event. And now the floor goes to my colleague, Filippo Del Nino from the European Training Foundation. Filippo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Daria. Good morning to all participants to this conference. As Daria mentioned, we will tackle in this session 2 additional areas of work where the ENE has been active in 2020 through our activities and our partnerships. We will tackle digitalization as a first area of work, and then we will discuss autonomy of Center of Excellence and their role in public-private partnership. So without hesitation, we start with digitalization. And I would like to introduce our guest for today, Giovanni Crisona, leader of the Skillman Network, Luis de la Torre, associate professor at the Computer Science and Automatic Control Department, Universidad Nacional de Educación a Distancia, and co-founder of Nebulous System, and Filippo Di Gregorio, Director General Unindustria Reggio Emilia. I pass the word to Giovanni for the facilitation of this session. Thank you very much. Giovanni, the mic.
Thank you very much. Sorry. I was saying that I will introduce a little bit Skillman Network that is bringing here two most outstanding examples on our engagement in digitalization of COVES, and then I will make 2 questions to them to facilitate the discussion. Skillman Network has a vision that is nearly 20 years, I think, ago. The Copenhagen Declaration was getting the problem to make a stronger collaboration to to have a strong collaboration among TVET centers and companies. And starting from this idea, we have developed the network now, the network Skillman network that has an active collaboration with your network, and we are very happy and proud and thankful for this. The network covers around 90 countries and collect more than 600 members. We are working now on skill anticipation exercise at focusing the regional dimension, and the network is very well engaged in giving an ethical impact to education and to learning, considering as one of the most relevant aspects to discuss about ethical skills when you talk about the curricula design and revision. One important aspect is that Skillman, I didn't say in the beginning, is the worldwide network for skills in advanced manufacturing. That is not anything concerning to gender discrimination. Our name refers to manufacturing sector, and we are working now in growing up our sub-network of Global COVES, the initiative that we bring on to help our members to improve in the direction of excellence. And to make it, we have a self-assessment tool. We are working together to exchange information with the ENE network. And now I would like to introduce the aspect that our members have developed, starting from one of the two most important concepts that we think are relevant for COVES to face the transition to digital. In February this year, the Commission has proposed a new European partnership for investment. So this is the framework that I would like to focus. There will be a new engagement in investing for this transition toward green, climate neutral, and digital Europe in general. So our VET centers, our COVES are engaged in this transition. And the final idea is to have, I think, an European industry that is more competitive and resilient. Okay, we want to change it, but how we can improve in digital? And there will be this investment. But our COVES have already started or are engaged in this progress. In fact, we have here an example of from Reggio Emilia of one of our members that has developed a regional digital district in Reggio Emilia. We have this outstanding example, I think, and we have also here from Spain the CEO of Nebulous System, Professor Luis de la Torre, that he's bringing also an example of what could be necessary to implement this transition for COVES in terms of remote laboratories that they implement. So in this framework, I would like to make the first question to Professor Luis de la Torre, that has, I think, is the inventor of this technology that he diffuses. And I would like to ask to Luis, what are the investments that the COVES needs to implement, or what are the solutions that you think necessary and that you provide to allow the use of shared laboratories and so remote laboratories? Please, Luis.
Yes, thank you, Giovanni, for the introduction. So in order to answer that question, of course, let me first explain very briefly how our solution works. So we can understand the full list of requirements and the infrastructure any institution would need to make this a reality. So our solution basically consists on two parts. The first part is a software that needs to be installed in the lab computers where the equipment that you want to make remotely operable is located. And the second part of our solution, the core of this solution, is an IoT platform which is hosted in the cloud. With these two things, the lab equipment gets published in the cloud platform, where you can manage it, and it is also made available as web services for your students, researchers, and so on. So this is the first investment that would be needed by an institution. Okay. Purchasing the software and an annual license for using the cloud IoT platform I just mentioned. There is, of course, a second part to this, which is the lab equipment itself that you want to operate remotely, right? So we can divide these in two categories. First, the general things that are commonly needed by any lab to enable remote operation of the equipment, and second, the specific things that are needed depending on the domain, the knowledge domain, and the experiments, and the particular lab setups that you have in your laboratory. So in the first category, these general things, these common things that you would require, there are three important things. First, the computers, of course, whether they run on Linux or on Windows or whatever. You need the computers to install our software and to use them as an interface with the lab equipment. Of course, fortunately, most labs already are well supplied with computers. Second, you need the web cameras, so students get and researchers get video feedback from what's going on the laboratory when they operate the equipment. These cameras can be added to the cloud IoT platform and be assigned to the different lab equipment. And finally, you need smart power strips or power distribution units. And this is important because you do not want to have your equipment power on or power all the time. Instead, what you want is devices to be power on when a user connects to the lab and power off when the user disconnects. So regardless he or she forgets to press the switch off button, the devices will power off when the user disconnects and stop using the lab equipment. That's most of the part for the first category, for the common things. And then in the second category, the things depends on the particular lab setups that you have, of course. So it is impossible to give a list or a budget for this. However, the basic requirement here is that the lab needs to be fully operable from a computer without any manual interaction. It has to be digitized, so to speak. So to put a very short example, and I'm finishing with this, let's think on a tank in which you need to control the water level in the tank. This is a common experience in control engineering. So in this system, you basically have three main elements apart or aside from the tank itself, which are two valves that control the input flow to the tank and the output flow of the tank, and another one, and the third element, which is a sensor to measure the level of the water in the tank. So if you have manual valves and you need to turn the valves to open and close them manually, this is not going to work. Of course, you will need to replace these manual valves with electro valves that you can operate electronically. And the same goes with the sensor. If you have an analog sensor, this is not working, but you need to replace it with a digital sensor. So without considering this last aspect, the investment required for a lab to be fully operable remotely can be around 4,000 to 6,000 euros, more or less.
Thank you very much, Filippo. we were waiting for the end. Luis de la Torre, thank you very much. Now, I would like to move to Reggio Emilia, where we have already an investment, a relevant investment to implement this transition to digital. We have the digital district, and Dr. Filippo Di Gregorio, I would like to ask to you when and how you realize this initiative and what it represents in terms of investments and targets that you have given to your territory.
Thanks, Giovanni. Confindustria is the main association representing manufacturing and service companies in Italy, And in Reggio Emilia in particular, we represent more than 1,000 companies and more than 50,000 people. Our digital district project strategy was developed between the end of 2018 and the beginning of 2019 by a number of entrepreneurs of Reggio Emilia that worked together in focus group in order to redesign the strategy of the company, in particular with the aim, with the vision to support local companies, small, medium enterprises through digital transformation. So Digital District is a strategic project. And we would like to provide advanced services designed to help businesses and to help companies in the transformation connected with Industry 4.0. It has its roots in the white paper, which sets out the goal to give concrete form to the guidelines on territory, innovation, and education, structured around 5 new macro projects, and I think that we will talk about them later. We have already started. So we have designed and planned the Digital District, as I said before, at the beginning of 2019, and we have already started with the first project at the end of 2019 and during the 2020, even if we were in the pandemic emergency. And so we started with educational consultancy with Robolab, that is a very particular project. We started also with the Human and Technology Training Center, that is a training center to develop, that would like to develop Industry 4.0 skills and competencies, and we have already started an open accelerator. And as you said before, the investment is important. We are talking about 100,000 euros, but we would like also to invest again in the future. For sure, we cannot do this by ourselves, so we establish partnership with training center like CIS, that is the training center of our association here in Reggio Emilia, with the municipality of Reggio Emilia, with Emilia-Romagna region, and with some private technical partner. And in this moment, this digital district is widespread in the Reggio Emilia territory, but our aim is to bring all these projects in Innovation Park in Reggio Emilia. And so the future investment will be an investment of millions of euros, because we started from content, but now we have to build also a beautiful box to host all our projects. So we are going on with the Digital District project.
Thank you very much, Filippo. I'm very well impressed every time that I hear your history about your commitment, the regional commitment that you have created, and the capacity and investment that you have done. This is very important. So the conclusion is that we need to have the solutions, and we also need to make relevant investment, engage stakeholders, and I think that this is an outstanding example of COVES that represent a vision for the future, to emerge stronger from the pandemic and to lead the way towards. I would like to know a little bit more, Filippo, about your initiative. What are more in detail the specific domains that your digital district can offer to your industry?
Yeah, so we would like to help our company through the digital innovation, and we are also focused on technology transfer, on upskilling and reskilling, on pre-professional advice, on training, on curriculum counseling. So we have developed 5 macro projects. The first is Robolab, an experimental educational robotic laboratory providing vocational guidance to students from primary through to secondary school, whose goal is to promote the development of technical and digital skills. The second is the Human and Technology Training Center, so an innovative training environment consisting of laboratories equipped with advanced technologies designed to develop specialistic skills on digital transformation. The third macro project that we have already developed is the Open Accelerator. So is a place which we support innovative startups and entrepreneurship by promoting open innovation and acceleration action. And these three macro projects are already done, and we are already working with students, with trainee, and with startups. Then we will develop on July 2021 the Digital Automation Lab, a technology application laboratory for advanced manufacturing, digital integrated and connected for process innovation and technology transfer. And we are also working with our university, the University of Modena Reggio Emilia, to develop some new degrees. So we are fostering partnership between the business world and academia, collaborating with in the creation of new university courses centered on distinctive character of digital disciplines. So we are working to put together different partnerships, public, private, and to use technologies such as computer or simulator or robots or CNC machining, 3D printing, 3D scanners, and all this stuff to help people and to help companies through the digital transformation, digital revolution that we are facing.
Thank you very much to the regional digital district of Reggio Emilia. And last question for Professor Luis de la Torre. I would like to ask you, what are the specific domain, Luis, where your laboratories are currently used, implemented, and what other domains you can offer?
So currently, it has been applied mostly in control engineering or process control engineering in general, and electrical engineering, and also on several domains on physics. But actually, our solutions are quite wide or open, if you want, and they include, of course, also addressing key digital technologies and electronics for sure. Actually, this is a very natural field in which our solutions can be applied, as you know, the typical training systems used in these domains are usually already digitized. So if we go back to the last requirement I mentioned in my previous answer, the one about having training systems or experimental lab setups that can be completely operated through a computer, then you realize that in most cases, probably this requirement is already checked. So, and the same can be said, of course, to other specific domains, such as the one I mentioned of control engineering and so on. But our solutions are not limited only to this domain, of course, and we usually announce our system to address STEM experimentation in general, equally valid for, science, technology, engineering, and even mathematics. And this may sound a little bit more strange to mention mathematics here, but it is also a possibility, because nowadays, software such as Mathematica, which some of you may already have heard about, is used a lot on mathematics studies and research. But of course, this software has a commercial license, and you usually get your students to the lab and use the software in the lab where the license is installed. But with our system, you could provide remote access to those computers. So that's also another solution.
Thank you very much, Luis. We are end time, so I have to give back the microphone to Filippo Del Nino for short conclusion. I would like to remember that two examples of Skillman Coves and the engagement that they have in digitalization is coming sided to one general concept that excellence must be for all and not for elites. So Filippo, please, the microphone is yours.
Thank you very much, Giovanni, and a great thanks to Luis and Filippo for their very valuable input to our discussion. I have very few final considerations for the ENE network. It's clear that the topic of digitalization is on top of the agendas of all governments and all the other stakeholders in the education sector. It's also clear there are many developments and experimentation at national level, at regional or local level, at the level of individual center of excellence. For this reason, we think that this area of work is one where networks and partnerships are particularly important and can be very effective for sharing knowledge and experiences. And that's also why the reason why ENE will continue working in this area of work for 2021 and probably even further. I would like now to pass the word to Manuel for the facilitation of the next session. I would like to thank you very much again, all our guests.
Thank you, Filippo. Thank you, everyone there. Very glad and very happy to introduce the next session. And also because it's one of the sub-initiatives that also launched in 2020. So here you can see that I have now a double role as a new colleague leading thematically my great colleagues in the team, but also as governance expert. And in this role, one of the sub-initiatives that we had to launch, and we decided also for the demand of our partner countries, and also for our experience working for many years in multi-level governance, is the issue of autonomy of centers of excellence. We started to work also in this issue with some countries, but not only in center of excellence, but also in the network of vocational schools. So this sub-initiative is also feeding into the, let's say, thematic work indeed of institutional development, governance, and financing of Center of Vocational Excellence. So having said that, we decided to address the topic of autonomy in a specific way, linked to the role of public-private partnership. Overall, we already experienced working with our partner countries for many years that autonomy is a driver that brings private actors for the capacity of the centers, depending on the degree of managerial, financial, or pedagogic autonomy, on bringing private actors also to the floor of deciding strategies for driving institutions ahead. So this issue behind, we decide to launch a baseline study addressing in particular how autonomy is operationalized for centers of vocational excellence, linked to the role of public-private partnerships. So we also planned after this baseline study to have peer learning activities. Unfortunately, for COVID, we still have this in the pipeline, but we have a lot of hopes that after this period, we live our lives as beautiful they were. We will have the opportunity to conduct this practice also, and this practical approach. So in this respect, we made a study bringing 6 partner countries and 2 member states, which are also Finland and Netherlands. And the best of this is that we today have my nice colleague Floriana, who also we worked together on this study with another 2 additional special guests that also help us on implementing this study, also from the side of implementer, from the side of informant. So Floriana is my colleague working also in a public-private partnership and autonomy dimension in our ENE team, but also she's working in work-based learning as well. And then we have Mervi Jansen and Najid Hamuti. Mervi is the chair from Omnia Partnership, is one of our, in Finland, is one of our distinguished center of excellence that I would like also to give a special mention to Omnia, because Omnia is not only distinguished in our network, but I would say worldwide. But also we have Najid Hamout, who is the Hamuti, sorry, who is the current head of Career Center of a city in Casablanca. Casablanca, Morocco, is one of our also key partner countries on which the model of public-private partnerships is taking place from years ago, based on a governmental strategy which has been implemented in different sectors. So I'm not going to say anything else. I am going to put you a lot of curiosity on what we are going to say, because first Floriana will introduce the main findings of the study, and then we will have a nice interview video with our guests and you will know more about them. So please, Floriana, I think the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Manuel, and good morning, everybody. A very good introduction, actually. I will try to briefly go through actually our presentation. As I said, and as Manuel introduced before, in December, we simply presented the launching of this study. And now that it's finally being concluded, we can actually present to you some of the findings. As you see, the main objective was to analyze how autonomy in Center of Excellence is operationalized and how it can be linked to PPP. As mentioned before, 2 were the member states from the European Union and 6 from the ETF partner country. And our research has been based on desk research, online survey, and interviews. We actually got the opportunity to involve not only practitioners, but also policy makers. You can see that we map autonomy at 3 different levels. And the cover reviewed in the study had similar features and patterns of cooperation with the private sector. This was quite interesting because it happened despite the fact that they have a different country context and different legislation and a historical background in terms of vocational education and training. Next slide, please. So one of the key findings of the study was that COVE can mostly decide autonomously on the level and form of public-private cooperation. In fact, a high number of PPP was seen as a specific feature that distinguished a COVE from other vet providers. COVE also tend to be more accountable and operate more like a private company in their daily management. As you can see, benefits that COVE receive from public-private cooperation are also related to innovation. And it seems to be quite a margin of flexibility in this term in supporting research and development with private sectors and university. Next slide, please. Thank you. So from the table, you can see that there is a good level of satisfaction with autonomy and the COVE has. And the studied COVE portray a number of cooperation modes, so different modes with company to support student skills development. And here we touch upon work-based learning, including planning, and also including assessment for and as learning. The last box on the right side shows you the different driving forces behind COVEs. For instance, resources from the government and eventually even international donors. The need raising from industry, SMEs, and sector networks. And this takes me actually to the 2 last slides, which are questions that raised after this baseline study. And then I would like to share them with you this morning as food for thoughts for the follow-up. So next slide, please. And there we go. So we just mentioned that the study reviews similar partners despite different country contexts. So is there a common or differentiated approach in future ENE partnerships in terms of autonomy and PPP? And how could we increase private and international funding into COVEs? Next slide, please. So some of the countries that were involved in the studies actually managed to implement PPP without legislation. The question is there a policy trend or a policy gap? And overall, PPP is a factor linked to COVE's autonomy success. So how to further discuss this to support excellence development at system level? Those are just food for thoughts. So if you're interested in this specific topic, as Manuel was anticipating, in fact, we are planning along the year also, and is in the pipeline to have a workshop in which we actually promote a more in-depth discussion. So just let us know through our network email address. And now I kindly ask to launch our recorded double interview with two center representatives who took place in this study. I would like to thank you all. This is all from my side, so we can go ahead with the video. Thank you.
Thank you, Floriana.
Okay, so here we are for a double interview. You both ready? Your first name and name of your center.
Mervi, Omnia Education Partnerships.
Najib from EZIT, the Graduate School of Textile and the Garment Industry.
Your country.
Finland.
Morocco.
In which sector do you mainly provide training?
We train actually in multiple sectors, ranging from business, tourism, health, textile, carpentry, construction, to various technical fields, management, and entrepreneurship.
We specialize in textile and garment industry, and besides other qualifications such as merchandising, distribution, safety at work, hygiene, and all the vocations related to supply chain management.
How do you develop autonomy practices and link them with PPP in Finland?
Well, in Finland, vet centers actually have a very high degree of autonomy, which ranges from management of the vet centers, pedagogy and pedagogical practices, to private sector partnerships. For instance, Omnia has over 3,000 partners in the region. Recently, Espoo has become a forerunner in smart solutions in Finland and also sustainability. So the partnerships have now taken the form of, for instance, an AI innovation project and supporting companies, small and medium-sized enterprises in reaching the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So partnerships here have to be very much about win-win solutions. Typically, we blend in innovation, the use of new technology, but of course also workforce development on all sides is important. And when we look at the vet student side of the coin, it's very much about work-based learning and good work-based learning practices. So training future professionals.
How does it work then in Morocco? How do you develop autonomy practices and link them with PPP?
In Morocco, vocational education ecosystem is influenced by the institutional paradigm that we have. So we have on one side the Ministry of Vocational Education, who is in charge of, let's say, regulating the market, laws, bylaws, regulations, standards, etc. And on the other side, we have the Moroccan Agency for Vocational Education, which is in charge of, let's say, of executing the vocational education policy of the country. This question of implementing autonomy is not an old practice in Morocco. Maybe we can trace it back to 1996 with the foundation of our school. And that was the first example of a successful public-private partnerships in the fields of vocational education. How do we implement it? It's sometimes it's a matter of the output of the negotiations between the public authorities in charge of vocational education and also the agency in charge of implementing this policy. And this discussion with the professional associations, sometimes it comes out with a model, then we go to another sector with another professional association, then we have a new model. So we can say that in this respect that we don't really have a one-size-fits-all model for all, but some models, some of them are really successful ones.
And now we challenge our speakers with two different questions. How the Finnish vet system support quality and relevance of vets through partnerships with private sector?
Well, first of all, if we think about quality and relevance, for us, it's about anticipation. So about the real needs and what's happening in the society and in the industries as well. So our qualifications are designed and updated based on basically anticipation activities and input from the industry. And they're also, of course, updated on basically regularly, and it's a joint activity very much. So we want to see that the qualifications are up to date. So that's one thing about quality and relevance that is very important for us. The qualifications are also modular and the assessment is competency based. So modules are quite possible and enable also tailoring to private sector needs, and that's done quite frequently. So on a national level, the module has learning outcomes, but then the local industry and the local partners are very much taken into consideration in implementing the modules. And of course, the teaching staff has ongoing contact with companies through work-based learning practices, because actually student assessment is a joint effort and it's a part of the work-based learning process. So again, we get direct feedback from the industry and from companies, our partners, about the relevancy of what the students have learned and the quality of teaching, i.e. how well the students perform in the work-based learning practices. And basically, if we look at the overall picture, quality and relevance are what makes Finnish VET quite well known and popular even in Finland. So it's something that we're very proud of. Of course, it takes effort to keep it up to date, but for us, it's the only way that VET will actually be a part of solving problems for the future.
In Morocco, what is the impact at national level of such a practice?
This practice has to some sense revolutionized the system of vocational education in Morocco. So we started experimenting and sometimes getting inspiration from other partner countries. And then we discovered that it is to the extent of the involvement of industrialists, the private sector, that I mentioned here, the level of the involvement in the governance and also the management of vocational education centers. It has led to better quality, and it has also led to a faster integration to the job market of the students of vocational education centers. And the discussion still goes on. I mean, each now and then we try to improve these public-private partnerships through, if you like, adding some sophistications in terms of governance, and also in terms of getting the perfect match between the role of the state, which is more of the time providing funding, providing centers, purchasing machinery, etc., and the role of the industrials, which is giving us a hands-on information about the latest trends in the job market, the latest trends in technology needs, and also their needs. And we have some very successful experiences and some success stories in this sense. For example, in one sector, which I can't mention here, they were able, the board, which is made mainly from the industry, the board was able not only to answer the needs of a foreign investor, but they were able to train stagiaires, the students, 8 months before the implementation of the factory. So, I mean, the impact on the country is paramount and very positive, where you have a huge recruiter, a huge industrialist having on the opposite side people who understand the industry and people who understand vocational education.
In 1 minute, how do you see the way forward?
If we look at the situation today, we live pretty much in a global village, for the better and for the worse. So still, if we look at VET, we're very much looking at it from a local perspective and what is happening locally. I think we need to broaden our views on partnerships, and we need to look at international possibilities for sectoral and industry partnerships. So why not look at it with the aspect of skills without borders? Why not look at competence passports? Why not look at real partnerships that reach quite far and cover multiple sectors? Because we don't just develop things locally. We really have to work more together on an international level and from a point of view.
Well, from my view, from my perspective here in a North African country, I think the way forward is to try to standardize these public-private partnerships in the fields of vocational education, in the sense that we can have a model which is to some extent suitable for all, and which can guarantee a match between accountability, the accountability of the governance model, and also the autonomy of the vocational education centers. And this is a way for us to go quickly, because the labor market changes. Maybe half of the jobs that we have and occupations we have now will disappear in the next 5, 10, or 20 years. That's why we need really a very engaged and also sophisticated model for this public-private partnership.
And now say something nice about the ETF Network of Excellence.
Well, for me, this is a great example of what skills and competency without borders can be, learning from each other. I mean, public sector vets, policy and development must be in sync with private sector needs. They cannot reside in different time zones. So what a better way to promote this type of activity than the ENE network?
ETF Network of Excellence comes, I think, at the right time, in a time where the labor market is witnessing huge upheavals, digitization, automatization, etc. And what a golden opportunity to be able to speak to other partners and exchange and learn from each other. And this is an opportunity that our center is going to say, I can assure you, and I can assure you of our engagement and involvement in this partner, in this network.
Well, what an inspiring and interesting conversation. I want to thank you very much, both of you, Najib and Mervi. Thanks a lot. It was really interesting.
Thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. It was nice. Mervi, you were a star, Mervi. I'm very happy to have met you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to pass the floor to Filippo, who is my colleague. Filippo is going to introduce a nice poll to all the audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before giving the floor back to Daria for the closing remarks, we would like to engage you with one final poll. You should find it in the chat. It's only 2 questions, and we would like you to express yourself in terms of interest about these 2 areas, digitalization and school autonomy and public-private partnership. So we would like you to tell us to what extent you would like to be involved in activities around these areas. This is going to be important for us, for the planning of our activities, and for deciding which activities we are going to make. Ah, già. Sì. Flo? No, lascia questa.
Filippo,
Flo?
you're live.
Yes.
Flo, this is your poll.
Yeah.
So
But
they are
as
voting on your poll.
But I think Manuel is going to comment, wasn't it?
Sì, no, but I was actually presenting the questions of the next one.
Don't worry.
They are actually voting on your poll, so Manuel will comment on them.
It's okay.
No. No, ma
Filippo, you're live. Okay, dear colleagues, I step in just for a sec to remind that what you're seeing on screen is the reply to the poll, which was launched just now by my colleagues. I think that my colleague and team leader of the ENE network, Jose Manuel Galvin Rivas, is about to comment what you are having a look at in this first live about one of the major benefits of the COVs, autonomy and PPPs for VET excellent. Jose Manuel, can I give the floor to you?
Thank you, Daria. Yes, indeed, this first part of the poll is more qualitative, and we are clustering several tags from our distinguished participants. I think I'm going to refer also to the presentation given by my colleague Julian, on which also autonomy is one of the top areas on which our network is operating on trying to develop. We know very well that collaboration, innovation, integration, and close cooperation with the private sector is also the benefits of the COVES autonomy. This is documented also in our study. So in our study also that we are working now on publishing it, and you will receive our news on this. So we are now in we finalize the consultation with our partners participating as key informants in the study. We know that indeed the one of the major findings that already Florian introduced is that public-private partnership is one of the drivers that is informing autonomy. So it's the distinction, really the major distinctions that make autonomy important. So, and this is something also that we would like also to work with you in the network on how in your different environments, countries, operational day-by-day life, the degree of autonomy is you are satisfied, you are not satisfied. Do you think we will have to work much more on, let's say, lobbying sometimes and showing those environments which are more benefited from the autonomous statute of the Center of Excellence. So I would say now that innovation, collaboration, and integration are the major concepts highlighted qualitatively by our distinguished participants. I think we had more questions. Yes, so this is the first question. Thank you. Okay, so the second question is about what good practice would you like learn about from other ENE partners on autonomy and public-private partnerships. So I think we have very good countries here to build and to play with it. So first of all, we have all experience in our centers in our countries on how autonomy and public-private partnerships are running. But one of the things that we want in ENE also is to identify who can play the role of leader and who can play the role of learner or the critical friend. So we will have to also to understand better in the different thematic approaches that we have, who can play with role. So now the pool is running. What would practice and
yeah, Jose Manuel, now also the participants are having a look at what you have just described. Just a few seconds ago, they could not see the results as they are being shown on screen in this very colorful cake. So what you just mentioned now makes also more sense to them because they can see the distribution of the replies.
Yes, okay. Yes, indeed. Let's say the first qualitative poll give indications on what we are seeing now in number of votes. We still have the work-based learning, of course. Is an arrangement that under public-private partnership, which is let's say the driving force for many COBEs and also observed in many countries and in different environments. So the education business cooperation is a practice that we still want to learn more. We still also positioning ourselves on developing of innovation, also through PPPs, which is also, let's say, one of the let's say the components also of the study and one of the findings. Indeed, one of the findings of our study focus on this, and we explain based on the experience of the COBEs that we worked with them. The policymaker support driving PPPs is another issue. So this maybe will rise also and will touch our role on bringing, let's say, policymakers of highest level, working with grassroots level and linking the national level with the institutional level. The type of contract agreement is another issue, and the last one, which has less voted, is about the public-private partnership as driver for better quality and relevance. I think.
Jose Manuel, may I freestyle in a bit for a second, if you don't mind?
Please.
Because I think that there are some bits that you have just mentioned, which are linked to some requests for clarification that have emerged in the chat. So since we are ahead of time, I just like to take a question on about what PPP means for those who are not familiar with our acronyms, and we just like to make it explicit that these three P's stand for public-private partnerships. There was another question earlier on. I don't know if you want to take that or if we should address it back to Stefan, because it's about WBL. Sandra Mangas is asking if this WBL, work-based learning, is what we call FCT, Formación en Centros de Trabajo, that every student has to go through to get their degree, or are we talking about something different? Thank you, and sorry if the question seems stupid. Like Joao said, the question is never stupid. And I'm still getting used to all these new terms. We agree with you. Do you want to take that, Manuel? Or
Yes, sure. Briefly, because we have 56 seconds, 54 now. So yes, PPP is public-private partnership. Okay, the definition in particular, we work at the ETF now. We invite you also to revise our publications section, on which we recently published a study with 2 volumes, on which also in the first one we discussed the definitions, the different definitions, because there is not a single one. We propose something also based on our investigation. The second one, yes, what it is understood in Spain, which is my country indeed, for dual education, so formación en centros de trabajo, is what we refer to dual programs, so which is also a PPP. And the German case, well documented everywhere, is referring to this also. If my colleague Stefan wants to add something else, I think the time is over.
Yeah, no, I think I'm fine. I mean, these questions come up frequently, and we in the ETF, when we talk about work-based learning, we actually really mean learning that takes place at the workplace, in a company. Of course, there are also other cases, for example, when there is attached a restaurant or a car repair shop to a school, that can also be work-based learning. But usually work-based learning in the narrow, let's say, sense, it means learning when you're really doing real work, when you're involved in real work processes. And as Manuel said, of course, a dual training or education, how you call it in Spain, this is a PPP, certainly, because there are different players involved.
Thank you, Stefan, and thank you, Manuel. Would you like to wrap up your session, Manuel, Filippo, or?
Well, the only thing I have to add at this stage, because we are out of time, and Filippo also can close, is that please send your questions for the reason you know. We hope that also to be online is fine for you, but I think that this morning we had a lot of food for discussion in the different themes that we developed through the last year, but we are still running, with finalizing, let's say, or wrapping up the final products like the publications, reports, policy briefings that we will share with you. But in the meantime, and I think to keep the ball rolling and these thematics that we discussed this morning, we kindly ask you to share your question with us, your needs of learning. So of course, also this morning you had the opportunity to discover a little bit more what is about our self-assessment tool and the usefulness for us to identify the areas that we can play with you or are more interesting for the network to develop or less develop, or even, as I told you before, to understand better from our side, from the ETF, what is the role that you can play in different contexts in the learning environments that we want to facilitate to work with you in the network. I don't know if from my side, from our side, it's everything for the first day, and we are very happy for seeing you today and working today and tomorrow more. We are waiting for more tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jose Manuel. Let's switch for 1 second more back to Filippo. Filippo?
Nothing to add. I would like to thank Daria in particular for the facilitation and all participants for joining during this event. Thank you very much.
Excellent. So thanks a lot to all of you. We had a plan in this very crowded morning, which was ending the sessions at 12:15, which is precisely the case now. So well done to all speakers. It's great that we've managed to share all the very interesting contributions while respecting everyone's allocated slot. I hope this conversation was interesting and meaningful to all of you. We hope we managed to take all the questions we have received in writing. If you have many more questions, think about that today, and don't hesitate to drop a line tomorrow during the next day of this ENE network conference, the conference about the ETF network for the Centers of Vocational Excellence, and we'll be glad to take them on board. Post them in the chat tomorrow. So we will see each other again tomorrow at 9:30 sharp Central European time. Since now the translation interpretation service, you're now very familiar with that, I recommend you to join few minutes before and select the interpretation channel before 9:30, so everything will go smoothly. We apologize for any possible technical inconvenience we might have had. As you know, we're all working under challenging times, and nevertheless, we hope that you enjoyed this very pleasant morning, which is making our community grow more and more. As Manuela mentioned at the very beginning of this day, we are growing super fast, and this is very special and precious. So thanks a million to all of you. Thanks to the technical team for supporting, and it's great to see you tomorrow at 9:30 CET. Thanks a lot, and let's excel together. Bye.